Welcome to Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole, hosted by two nationally published Atlanta interior designers, Joanne Kandrak and Kelly Cole. These energetic women are also world travelers, charity givers, and bloggers with a wealth of information to share and stories to tell about the interior design world. Okay, now just a warning, this is going to be fun and not too serious. After all, they still do have an interior design business running at full speed.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. This is episode 75 of Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole. And today we are super excited to sit down and chat with our longtime friend and CEO of the infamous lighting brand Currey & Company, Brownlee Currey. So Currey & Company is a wholesale manufacturer of not only lighting, but furniture and accent pieces as well. And their innovative furnishings can be found around the world in residential, contract, and hospitality spaces. So they're celebrating their 32nd year in business, and we have lots to talk about with Brownlee. So welcome.
Welcome, Brownlee. I have to kind of say that we might need to change the title of this podcast because it says Guest Brownlee Currey, and it needs to say Guest Brownlee Currey, one of the most interesting people that we know.
Oh, thank you.
That's so true. So give us a little background, Brownlee, because you really are. You really are one of the most interesting people that I know.
Sure. Well, so Currey & Company is a family business, and so I grew up in this trade. And, my mother and father started this business in 1988 without really a long-term plan. My father had sold another furniture business in 84, 85, a retail business called Storehouse. And he needed something to do. And so after a couple years of being a road rep, which we figured out he was not cut out for, he was doing various consulting for a number of different retailers. And they started this company so that there was a company for his consulting business, and it all just kind of rolled out from there.
Well, your parents, Susan and Robert, we have met many times, and they are fantastic people. So it doesn't surprise me that Robert, kind of has that creative entrepreneurial spirit, which obviously flows throughout your family.
Brownlee, how did you get involved? Was it something you always wanted to do, or did you kind of...
Were you forced?
Well, you can... but rarely successfully force somebody into this kind of position, right? And we see it all the time. But no, so I participated in all this stuff in my teens. And so I remember doing things with my father, like loading a truck and driving 16 hours to Javits in New York, setting up, doing the gift show, working those trade fairs, and then driving home immediately afterwards. Oh. And, I worked. Yeah, which was not exactly how do I say it? Not exactly what one would do for fun, except you're like 16. Yeah, except you're 16 or 17, and nothing makes you tired.
True.
So now I think about that experience, and I think about my father, who must have been in his sort of mid to late 40s at that point, and I'm like, oh. He must have been tired the whole time we did this. So I got to participate in the business, in that way. And then I detoured for a while after that. I actually got a job at Pike's Nurseries here in Atlanta. And
I love Pike's.
Yeah. And so I worked at Pike's Family Nurseries off and on for 5 years. And had just a wonderful boss there. And so I got sort of out of the home furnishings business and very much into plants at that point. In part, I have to give the gentleman credit. His name was Dave Wagner, and he had a great training program. And so there were always a few kind of kids floating around that store. And if you were willing and capable of doing the work, he would teach you how to run the store. And so I started off cleaning the parking lot, and a few years later was counting and balancing register drawers and ordering stock and opening and closing the shop.
That's a really, really good point, because I think training, great training that you use throughout your lifetime comes sometimes in the strangest ways. And I think kids these days stick their nose up in the air at that kind of stuff, and they shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, how do you say this? I'm not sure necessarily that it's even the kids sticking their nose up at it, but I think the activities are so scheduled and controlled, the opportunity to have those experiences just don't exist.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at my family members and I look at what like the teenagers are doing, and it's pretty awesome because they're doing cool stuff. But the part where somebody handed you a broom and said knock yourself out has never happened to these kids.
You are so right.
All right, so we have to talk about what else you learned at Pike, which has become my obsession now.
I know where we're about to head.
Joanne's jumping around our little outline here, but while we're on the subject, if you have been to any of the showrooms for Currey, especially at High Point, you'll see a beautiful and unique collection of bonsai trees in all different shapes and sizes that are around the showroom. And I mean, Joanne and I have never appreciated bonsai trees until we saw, these in the showroom. And Joanne has kind of gone off on her own little obsession, and it's just fascinating. So take us on a little detour about how your bonsai love became.
Oh, sure,
such a passion.
Sure. So, so I was fascinated with all things Japan. As a child, and you have to remember that this was pre-internet. I mean, the moment where you could download or stream any content you wanted didn't exist, and so this was a tricky passion to have at the time, because you were just gleaning whatever you could. And I was interested in the plants, and my father is a gardener of some significance, I guess would be the right way to say it, and so all of these interests crossed with the bonsai thing. And so while I was working at Pike's, whenever we had a poor, neglected little juniper or something like that, I would buy it for $1 and take it home and abuse it. And my mother, being the wise individual that she is, for Christmas, one year, I think, maybe I was like 15, gave me bonsai lessons as my Christmas gift. And there was a guy named David Cook over on Claremont Road, and he had a bonsai garden center, essentially, called the Garden Source. And I went and did, I think, 6 weeks worth of lessons with David. And that sort of started me tumbling down the path. Again, life is a series of detours, so that lasted until I met a girl that would talk to me. And I mean, and because really, what are you going to choose? And my father kept all the plants alive during that period of time. And so he is something of a savant about not killing stuff. He is really good. He can put it into a pot and keep it alive. And it's pretty funny. So to tie the history together, I went to school in Ohio, so wasn't around for 4 years there. And then after college, went to go work for Crate and Barrel Furniture in Chicago. And so again, was pretty absent from both Currey and Atlanta. And then in 2001, when I moved back to Atlanta to come to work for Currey, started helping my father get plants organized for the showroom. And that meant what at the time we thought was bonsai. And so, I dinked around with our plants for any number of years. And then about 6 years ago, maybe 7 now, I can't quite remember, went to Japan for the first time. And that really opens your eyes. When you finally see a real bonsai placed in front of you, that just opens your eyes to the whole art form. And there's been no looking back since then.
Well, it is an art form, isn't it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
When we come to the showroom in High Point, I mean, I love seeing all the lighting. And of course, we're going to get to that in a minute. But I get so distracted. And instead of snapping pictures of the fixtures, I'm snapping pictures of all these vines. It's just so interesting and so fun. And I would have never, I just never experienced that kind of collection, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And it's just really...
Well, the trees are powerful in a way, and they have a real presence. And one of the reasons that I like them in that showroom is because they provide a place for people to stop and let their eyes linger for a little while. And so that's really helpful.
Well, it's funny because I was in the showroom a couple years ago in High Point, and I was talking to your dad about the bonsai. And he basically told me that, you brought all these things home and then you ditched them. And then he was responsible. So,
well, he did a good job.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we are huge fans of Currey. And, whenever we come and visit the showrooms, we're just so amazed at all the product that's offered. But there is something very special about Currey that I found out about 3 or 4 years ago when I was just happened to be reading the Sunday paper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
And it was talking about Currey, and it made me take a second look, and I read the whole article about how Currey treats their employees, the special menu of benefits that they offer people, and how Currey invests in people. And I think it's so fascinating and so wonderful. Just give us a quick, tell our audience a little bit about what Currey does for their employees, because I think it's amazing.
Sure. So, we have a training and development system that, this sounds a little corny to say. You're really trying to embrace sort of as many elements of the life of our employees as we can. But so we have a pretty significant education program for all of our employees, and we do a English as second language program that meets 5 days a week. We have a GED program for anybody that needs it. We tend to do that off-site. We have a college program for any employee that wants to go to college. They can go to any Georgia public college absolutely for free.
Wow.
And we have about 26 people enrolled in college right now.
And just to preface this, you have around 550 people working for you in the U.S., but also in the Philippines,
That's
China,
right.
and India. So,
That's
okay,
right.
so keep going because you've got quite the staff.
We do. We have a few people. But, so there's about 120 people in Atlanta. And so we're really proud when we were able to sort of push the college enrollment piece up over 20.
Wow.
We tie all that together with a couple other components, if you don't mind. My thinking about this has actually evolved a little bit since some of our initial conversations. In the States, there are really a couple other components to talk about. There's a wellness component for everybody that we're doing, which is there's daily exercise classes. There's something every day at the office. There are a series of health and wellness programs around particularly sort of stress management, mindfulness, and nutrition. And so
Joanne, we're jumping ship. We're jumping ship. We're going to work for Currey.
I was just going to say, Kandrak and Cole just became Cole Interior Designs, and Joanne Kandrak is now
Don't leave me.
going to Currey.
I'm going to Currey.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. So we do that piece. You'll laugh. We even deliver a healthy snack once a day to everybody.
Holy camole.
Really, in this case, what that means is my assistant and her cohorts have a buggy filled with fruit that gets delivered to every workstation in the factory every day. And it's just the little stuff.
It is the little stuff. So when you talked about, when you went to Japan for the first time and all that, and your travels are crazy. We watch them on Facebook. I'm like, look at where he is. I'm so jealous. So, but you really spend a lot of time with your teams, visiting your factories. And what exactly are you doing there? And how did you even learn, how to go there and talk to them?
How do you do this, right?
How do you do what you do? I don't get it.
Well, you start like any other task in life by doing it poorly, and you get better over time. And so, I really did start the travel piece. I mean, I'd been working for Currey for about 3 or 4 years, and we have been entrenched in the Philippines for quite some time. We've got a good number of people there. And so that's where a lot of our wrought iron lighting comes from.
Okay.
Most of our wrought iron work and woodwork really come out of the Philippines. We're not as deep a China resource in that respect. And my father met a Filipino family 30 plus years ago. And in 2000, he was doing so much business in one area where he proposed to that family that let's build a factory together. And literally, over the course of about 18 months, they formed a company, built a building, and all of a sudden we were in business. And the fascinating part from my perspective was I'd sort of known this whole thing was going on, and my father said, "All right, boy, it's time for you to get on the plane."
All right, boy. That's something Robert would say.
It is. And so, I get on the plane and discovered that there's a whole group of people there, all of whom knew who I was, and I had absolutely no clue about who they were and what everybody did. And I think the first couple years there, I just had to sort of bumble through learning how to manage those relationships and what we did in the factory as best I was able.
And I think when we were talking one time, and you were telling us that maybe it's this family, but the skill level of your people in the Philippines is so amazing. Like, they can do things with their hands and with very odd materials, natural materials for your product that a lot of artisans can't do.
Yeah, the hand skills are really very much intact in the Philippines. And so our partners there, really, literally, their grandfather was the village blacksmith. And so there's a long tradition of working iron. And so we can still do, all of the traditional little ironworking techniques. But, they're really good hand painting skills there, and we're really good at applied materials in that location. So, we do all the little sea glass things where we're putting little pieces of sea glass on individually. We do all the abaca rope and that sort of thing where we're applying that over another substrate. And of course, it's the Philippines, so we do lots of applied seashell work there. And that's so beautifully done.
How many fixtures are in your line, just so that people can have a sense for how many different products you have?
Sure. Ceiling fixtures, there's about 650 different items.
Oh, goodness. We probably sold at least half.
Yeah. So for anybody,
at least half from what I can see online.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure everybody that's in the design trade or designers have heard of you. But for those listening that are not familiar, you need to go and check out their website. It's Currey, Currey, and company.com. And you will see kind of what we're talking about here.
Going back to all the natural materials and how do you come, is it quite a collaboration in terms of the designs, and how do you, because you guys come out with so many new SKUs every market. Who's coming up with that? Is that you? Is that a collaborative thing?
Okay, so it's a dance, and it's a big collaboration. And one of the really special things I think that we do, the and company part of what we do is really important. And so, we've got a design team of, let's see, I have to count on my fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 board-skilled people in Atlanta, plus Cecil Adams, our creative director.
Amazing.
Who's pretty good. I think the boy does all right.
He does all right.
And they've got a team of a dozen working designers in the Philippines backing them up. And so there's another dozen people to do working drawings for them. And then you have a product development team. The product development department, for example, in the Philippines, there's 24 people working in it. It's the second biggest department in the company. And then our China operations and India operations function a little differently. We have merchandisers who really, in a way, are product developers. And so, you've got 3 heavy-duty merchandisers working on us all the time in China, and then you've got 3 heavy-duty merchandisers working on us all the time in India. And so it takes a big group of people to do all this, and it's really all those different points of view. There's room in the collection. If you've got 600 ceiling fixtures, there's room in the collection to take a little risk, to do something a little exciting, and also for some of our different designers to have their own individual voices. And so I think it's that collection of voices that is what provides the breadth to what we do.
That's a really good answer. I can kind of see
Absolutely.
how that. Yeah.
And it's why we can lean on Currey for so many different projects, because of that breadth of diversity and the collection.
And needless to say, and I'm just saying this in all honesty, Brownlee, not only are the products beautiful, but the staff and the customer service that we get. We just ordered 4 different items yesterday, I think, and the acknowledgement already came, and they've already gone into shipping. It's fast.
Perfect.
Everybody makes it. If we ever have an issue, if something got damaged, it gets taken care of right away. So as designers and as customers, we just can't say enough about that too. So we have just a few minutes left, but we wanted to just talk to you as far as being a manufacturer and an importer.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on this whole coronavirus, as well as the tariffs that is happening in our world right now?
Sure. Well, so I think they're both disruptors, and I think we're going to navigate through both of them. The coronavirus piece, we're going to have to see what happens as it spreads around the world. I think we're all pretty familiar. They delayed Salon de Mobile by 2 months. Yesterday, and so I was pondering it of, well, what happens if the High Point market is delayed? The cornerstone that our world is built around. But truthfully, I think you're going to see some stock outs from this whole thing. We were running some inventory projections last week to really look at what shape we think we're in, and because of how broadly we're sourced. We think that ultimately we're going to be just fine. I think we have maybe 30 items that might be a problem. And if you've got a total collection of 1,500 SKUs, 30 items is a pretty livable thing.
It's a pretty good learning lesson for businesses if you think about it. I think every business will approach their inventory and their sources in a whole new way going forward.
Yeah, I think it's really true. I think the one thing that we're going to see ripple, and we don't know the full effects of it yet, is depending how long it really takes China to truly get back to work. And they're working on it. I talked to our China GM last night, and she's got about half her factories have returned in some capacity or the other. Nobody's at full speed. I think the big question really is more about componentry. And so, even if the finished goods aren't coming out of China, for example, almost every lamp holder, piece of wire nut, every little electrical component you can think of is all made there. And so I think you could begin to see some of that stuff ripple through. Maybe it's even a made in America company, but depending on Chinese parts to be assembled.
Exactly. I never thought of it that way. Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
That's I think where things are going to get a little gnarly.
Yeah, good point.
Well,
you guys have a newly renovated showrooms in Dallas and Las Vegas, your showroom in Atlanta, in High Point, the 16,000 square foot showroom. We are about to be visiting in April. Joanne and I are insider guides for High Point. We are touring the Currey showroom.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yes. So if you are a designer out there listening, or you're a newbie and you haven't been to High Point in quite some time, or you haven't been at all, go on to highpointmarket.org and look up the Insider Tour and jump on our tour, because we will be visiting Currey, and I think we'll be there for lunch, which is even extra special.
Excellent.
So,
even better.
We're like Joanne said, we're big fans, and we could just talk. I think your perspective and your philosophies are so cathartic, and I love to listen to your voice. And I wish we weren't running out of time, but we are super glad that you could come on with us.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And, High Point in April ought to be exciting. We're launching Sasha Bekoff's lighting collection. And I hope everybody,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I hope everybody is ready for a punch of color, because you're about to get it.
Well, we sure are.
We sure are.
Color girls. We are color girls.
Yeah. And we're doing a major accessory launch there too, about 250 or 300 new accessory SKUs for that market. And I think that's going to feel really meaningful at that show. So High Point will be exciting come late April.
Good. Well, we will be there.
Excellent.
All right.
We'll look forward to seeing you.
We are winding down. We're going to hang on for a minute. We're going to do our funny and our serious quotes. Why don't you do the funny quote?
Okay.
Okay.
1 minute you're young and fun, and the next you're turning down the stereo in your car to see better.
That's so something I would do.
Guilty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to concentrate. Turn off the. I can see better. All right. Here's our serious quote, and this is I am reading this quote to you in honor of a young girl who's very close to my heart, Izzy Herman, who passed away this week from leukemia. And this quote is from Dean Koontz. If we were always conscious of the fact that people precious to us are frighteningly mortal, hanging not even by a thread, but by a wisp of gossamer, perhaps we would be kinder to them and more grateful for the love and friendship they give to us. I love that. What beautiful words.
It's a good one.
By a wisp of gossamer. I love that.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Brownlee, it was a pleasure having you on. And then we also are working on our next recording, and we will be doing your designer questions. So anybody that has a dilemma question, like, what color should, what color should I paint my front door?
Is this the Ask Me Anything podcast?
This is the Ask Me Anything.
Everybody loves it. It's like always at the top of the analytics. So we just keep doing it because clearly people want to pick our brain.
Yeah. So please send us some good ones, because invariably, if it's something you're struggling with, maybe a lot of other people are. So you can go to our email, go to info@candrak-cole.com, and just send something through and tell us your name and where you're from, and we'll mention it. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Brownlee.
Well, you're welcome. That sure went quick.
Yes, it does go quick. Have a good day.
Bye.
All right. Y'all take care.
Join Joanne and Kelly weekly for a lively conversation about trends, travels to industry events, current design projects, the good, the bad, and the ugly, do's and don'ts, product recommendations, and more. Be sure to follow the fun on Facebook. They're on Instagram @Candrak-Cole, and of course, you've got to visit them online at candrak-cole.com for more information.